All right, we're back again for another live broadcast. Thank you again, as always, for tuning in. I hope you guys had a wonderful, or having still a wonderful weekend. Today is August the 24th, 2025, and it is 105 degrees out here in beautiful Arizona area, and I'm glad that you can join us. It's a nice day out. It's warm for a lot of people, but it's warm is relative out here. And anyway, so today we're going to talk about yet another interesting topic that's going to require adults. This is going to be an adult-only conversation that we're going to have. And we're going to go right into it. We're going to hit it. We're going to hit the truth. And sometimes truth is very uncomfortable for people. But it is what it is. But we can be honest. But yet we can build from that truth as well. It's not pointing down. We're going to lift up. All right. Well, again, glad that you guys can join us. Be sure to check out our store, which is sambatree.com, where we are constantly providing real live solutions for people as it pertains to their health and their wellness. I know I've stopped a little bit on our brain series over on our Sambatree YouTube page, but we're going to continue it hopefully this week. It just got a lot of things going on. But yeah, we're talking about brain health. I know that's not something that's very popular to talk about. Oh, it's too many words. It's too much science. No, we need to understand why our brain works, right? And how it works and how we can optimize it, right? So we get into that, all those other things on our Sambatree YouTube page. And let's see what else. So yeah, so check that out. We got everything from powders to bitters to oils, all kinds of natural things for your body. Again, our target is to get as many people as possible who are dealing with things such as high blood pressure and diabetes to get these things not under control, but eliminated, meaning that this should not be an issue amongst us anymore. This is too easy of a thing that we can eradicate, and we don't need this demonic pharmaceutical industry to dictate to us when we can get better and well. All right. So that's the kind of stuff we address and deal with over there over on sambatree.com. Make sure you check it out. We got a first time viewer, Elena Piro. Thank you so much. Piro. I hope I said it right. Hope I didn't butcher your name. You know, I don't like doing that. But anyway, it's good to see you. Thank you so much for joining. All right, we're going to give people about another 20 seconds, and then we're going to jump right in. All right. I think we got it here. We're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you so much again for tuning in. I promise try not to take up too much of your time today, and make sure we get the information and keep it rolling. So again, thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, so today we're going to talk about this topic here that I guarantee you that a lot of people, you're not going to find too many channels talking about this. And this is not just narcissism, but black narcissism. All right. We're going to talk about this because this is a thing. I don't care if you don't want to believe it. I don't care if you don't want to see it, but it is there. And we're going to this is not just a person here that you're listening to that is just bloviating and just talking about whatever. That's it. We're actually going to look at an individual who actually studied it. And we're just going to do an overview. They actually have a study that they did on this, or a series of studies. And we're going to talk about that briefly. All right. So, yeah, so that's what we're going to look at. So this is a thing. And this is something I have been observing, and it seems like it is getting worse and worse and worse. And we're going to get into maybe the history. We won't get into the somewhat of the history of it, because sometimes it can be misinterpreted. Sometimes, you mean narcissism can be misinterpreted? Yeah, when you are looking at Black history, there are some nuances when we're talking about narcissism versus self-confidence. There's nothing wrong with having a good, healthy confidence about yourself. But what we're seeing now is crossed over that, and now it's getting into some other stuff here. So let's first and foremost, let's define what narcissism is. And narcissism is a personality trait and disorder marked by an exaggerated sense of self-importance, a deep need for admiration, and a lack of empathy for others. All right. So that's just a quick definition of when we talk about narcissism. So let me bring you up on this screen. Let me bring up this old chart here so you can see it in motion here. All right. So here it goes right here. Let's put it up here on the screen and let's go through it. Okay. So symptoms of a narcissistic personality disorder. Let me see if I can make that a little bit bigger there. And this is another thing I would call is main character syndrome, even though that's not an official medical term for it, but it's said enough out there where one day it will be, because that's exactly what it is. But anyway, considers themselves intelligent, confident, and self-assured. Now, that in of itself, I don't see necessarily anything wrong with that. Okay. I think we can all agree that someone that considers themselves intelligent, confident, and self-assured, that of course can be subjective, right? That's what they're really talking about. When you are, because you got people out here today, a dime a dozen, and all of them say that they're intelligent, but they're a bunch of freaking idiots, when you start listening, once they open their mouths. So that's what they're talking about. When what someone is saying doesn't match the facts. That's what they're talking about, right? So and then when you're trying to tell them, hey, take a look at this. This is what the facts say. And they're like, no, you don't know what you're talking about. Get out of here. Shoot. Right. That's what they're talking about. Next thing, believes they are unique and special. OK, now, this is an interesting one, too, because you're going to see this play out in a couple of areas that we're going to hit in this broadcast. OK, is unable to emphasize empathy. There's no empathy. They have very little empathy for other people. Next thing is has a grandiose sense of self. Yes, a really, really overblown sense of self. All right. Always thinks they're right. Manipulates, blames, and gaslights. Has an excessive need for praise and admiration. Displays a sense of entitlement and uses criticism and bullying to achieve their goals. Now, if I had the time today, I could have actually broke down each and every one of these things and giving you some prime examples I could show you of each. But because of time, we're not going to go through all of that, but we will be looking at some examples, no doubt, in this broadcast here. Okay, so that's the gist of it. And so let's look at this study here. Let me pull this up here. Now, this study, which is very funny. It's very funny because I was very curious. I said, now, did someone actually do a study on this? I said, probably not. I said, but I will look into it and just see. And lo and behold, yeah, someone actually did a study on this. And it was a Black woman. And what's interesting is I can't find a picture of her. So she threw this study out here and ducked. She said, let me get up out of here. And so, but yeah, no doubt. Yeah, she did a study. Her name is Marion T. Wallace. And she did a study on this. Let me see if I can pull it up for you here. Let me see. I'm going to show you the page here. Okay, so here's the page right here, and then I'm just going to give you the summary of it here. Okay, so this is it right here. Ethnicity, ethnic identity, and adolescent narcissism. All right, so that's the abstract and all of that. She's actually done several studies on this. It's not, she didn't just do one, she did several studies on this. But man, when I tell you, I have looked high and low for a picture of this woman, can't find her anywhere. And I said, yeah, if you're going to talk about a topic like this, I can only imagine some of the clapback that she got from people on this. But if you actually take the time and kind of go through it, it's not really as bad as you think it is. I'm just going to give you the highlights here. And this is something, as always, that any of you guys could do. So you just go right to, find a study and then run it by ChatGPT and say, hey, can you give me a summary and give me links, for this thing? I'm just doing this for the sake of people, for a video that, this video here, so that I'm not going through every line, because otherwise this whole video would be a lot longer. But anyway, let's read it here. It says, number one, across adult samples, Black participants reported higher average narcissistic traits than white participants, even after controlling for gender, self-esteem, and socially desirable responding. The differences were largest on the agentic, grandiose facets, and I mean leadership, authority, exhibitionism, and small or nil, more pathological, vulnerable facets. And again, we're going to cut through all of this here because I said basically make it simpler because, we're reading. I'm not necessarily talking to an academic crowd here, and that's not belittling y'all. It just, I just want to make sure I'm not talking over people. So I said, just make it simple so everybody can understand this. So, all right, so let's read it here. It says, higher confidence score. In several studies, Black participants tended to score higher than white participants in personality tests that measured traits linked to confidence, leadership, and wanting recognition. These are often the big and bold sides of narcissism, not about being pathological. When it came to the more harmful or unhealthy forms of narcissism, being overly sensitive to criticism or manipulative, there weren't big differences between Black and white groups. The main differences showed up in the outgoing confidence area. And let's continue. It says cultural factors matter. For pro-Black teens, part of the higher score seemed connected to having a stronger sense of ethnic identity. Now, this to me is the linchpin. This is the linchpin right here because this is the basis of this, what is perceived to be narcissism. But where she's leaning in her study is it's not necessarily narcissism. It's just people that have a lot of confidence about themselves. All right. But this right here, where it says ethnic identity, this is the linchpin. And I'm going to explain that in a little bit. In other words, cultural pride and identity may influence how these traits show up. And then it goes on. She said, not at all bad. These traits don't always mean something negative. In fact, traits like confidence, leadership, and the ability to stand out can help people succeed, especially in environments where Black people historically haven't been given equal recognition. And then lastly, when it can be risky. In some cases, the more extreme or unhealthy sides of narcissism, when they did appear, had stronger links to problems for Black participants compared to white participants. But overall, the differences were more about style and self-expression than about serious personality problems. Okay, so we could see where she's going in this. And as I dug even further into this, there were other psychologists that studied this whole area of Black narcissism. And the direction that they're going is almost like she wrote this paper and it was kind of like the baton was passed where they took this information and they said, okay, the reason why we see this, and this is completely plausible and I completely understand, and she kind of was going here with this, is that when you're dealing with a people, in this case, we're talking about Black folks, right? When you're in a society that has historically, has always talked down on you, has always portrayed you as the least, you're goofy, you're dumb, you're stupid, blah, 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 whatever, right? when you are in a society like that, you either going to sink or swim, right? And so it was very common practice, especially amongst when you're getting into the, when you start getting into the 60s, the emergence of the Black Power movement and all of that. There was a sense of, hey, I'm Black and I'm proud. Be proud of your culture. Be proud of who you are. Be proud of your ancestors. Be proud of the accomplishments that they made. Don't listen to these people, right? So this pride or this confidence was based off of, as it said in there, cultural pride, right? And when you look back at the culture back then, the culture was basically a resurgence of, it was almost like someone hit the rewind button or the refresh button, because Black folks at that time were reaching back to what? Africa, right? It was not what we're seeing today, because we're going to explain what we're seeing today. But you had Black folks during that time wearing the dashikis, wearing the wood chain, the wood necklaces. You had the Black women, wearing their hair out. Then when in no wig. Diana Ross, she was wearing a wig, but everybody else, it was, I'm wearing my hair out. I'm gonna put my fist up and all this stuff. Much of this was rooted in this sense of, hey, listen, our story did not necessarily begin here. Our story goes much further back. And what we're going to do is kind of right this ship to start going back to that. So it was a moment in time in history where Black folks began to talk to themselves and say, no, get up. Come on, you better than that. Come on, get up. And you had teachers, some of you guys who are a little bit older than me, you may have been blessed enough to have school teachers that even went into this further and made it a point to put African stuff in the classroom or Black history stuff in the classroom and say, be proud of who you are, right? So the root of this cultural pride was basically something to be proud in what you've done here in the United States, but also recognize that your history goes much further back than that, right? So that's what it was then, right? But when we fast forward to today, what we see is not necessarily cultural pride, but cultural pridefulness. Now, this is something that's completely different now, because what we're seeing now is not a resurgence of, hey, listen, be proud in who you are based on this singular tree of culture. But now we're making up all kinds of alternative origin stories. And we've talked about them here on this platform. There's this big thing that's going on right now where Black folks swear up and down, nothing about me is African. Absolutely nothing at all about me is African at all. They tried to trick us. The CIA tried to trick us with this whole thing talking about African American, and then they used Jesse Jackson to put that in there and all this other stuff. Listen, take all that, flush that in the trash, because listen, this is why we challenge people all the time. I challenge people on two fronts. One, take your DNA test. And the same, and before you start off and say the DNA test, it's entertainment. They said that the DNA is for entertainment purposes only. So why would you debase? Did you ever take the time to read the whole thing, why they say it's for entertainment purposes? Did you ever read that? Or did you just listen to that video up to the certain point and then shut it down and say confirmation bias? I'm good. I don't need to hear from anybody else. The reason why they say this is because, let me pull it up. I actually have it on my phone here. Let me see. Again, just took a few moments to look this up. Let me see. I don't even have to go on my phone. Hold on. Let me pull this up for you right quick. Let me pull this up. Here it is. Here it is. Here it is. It's right here. I'll get it for you. All right. Here it is. Here it is. Here it is. Got it right here. All you got to do is look it up. I mean, I don't understand why people won't look this stuff up. All right, here we go. Because DNA testing companies like Ancestry.com can't guarantee 100% accuracy or legally give medical or legal advice they label their results as for entertainment purposes only. This protects them from liability since DNA matches and ethnicity estimates are based on probabilities, changing databases and comparisons, not absolute truth. Now, there are going to be some slight, we do know this, if someone take a DNA test, there are going to be some slight errors here and there on that, but I emphasize the word slight, right? They're not saying it's like a entertainment, like you're playing some video game. They're just saying this. They're saying it to protect themselves in the event of, hey, if there's a misread or something like that, hey, listen, we're protected because we're not saying 100%, but we'll say 99%. You know what I mean? So anyway, so I went on being a good student and said, let's press the issue even further. So if they are not 100% accurate, how accurate are they on the average? All right. So great question. DNA ancestry tests like Ancestry DNA and 23andMe are fairly accurate. Oh, they didn't read that part. They didn't read that part. For some things, but less for others. Okay, let's get more of a breakdown on what that actually meant. Close relatives, parents, siblings, and children, almost 100% accurate. If the DNA is in the database, they can confidently detect immediate family. Okay, so that's settled. Ethnicity estimates, percentages of African, European, Asian, etc. Usually 70 to 90% accurate at the continental level. But accuracy drops when breaking it down into smaller regions like West Africa or East African, Irish, or Scottish. Yes, I think that's pretty well, because you got some companies out here that boast that they can narrow it all the way down to the village. You know, that I wouldn't put too much confidence in, but getting you within the range, yes, these types of tests can do it. This is not entertainment. This is what they do. They do this all the time. Distant relatives, now you start getting into the distant relatives, third to fifth cousins, generally good, but not perfect. There is a higher chance of false positives or misconnections because DNA overlap gets very small. Right. So the further you go out, that's when the thing starts getting a little more, the accuracy starts going down a little bit. Right. So overall, family matches are highly reliable. Ethnicity breakdowns are more like educated estimates, but not exact science. OK, so this is what you do. Again, I keep telling y'all the resources are out here for you to confirm these claims that a lot of people put out here when it comes to who we are, right? But a lot of people choose not to use them because if they use them, it's going to destroy their whole narrative. Okay, but this stuff is out here. So, yes, so when we look, so you got people out here today that don't want to use science. Instead, they want to turn to grandma. And it's never grandpa. If you ever notice that, that's a huge red flag to me, number one. Why is it that the grandfather is always left out of the discussion? Almost always the grandpa is always left out of the discussion. That should be red flag number one. And so they'll turn to grandma research and say, oh, what my grandmother, she got records that go all the way back to the 1400s. Now, let me tell you something about when it comes to Black history, as far as marriage records and stuff like that. They are here. There are places where we can get those things, though. That's true. But the probability that everyone that you come across on social media is saying, I got family records that go all the way back to I'm talking about specifically Black folks. It's going to be, the probability of that happening is going to be extremely low. Why? Because if you take the time and actually look at the history of record keeping when it comes to Black history or Black folks, it is not something that is, a lot of cases, they've actually destroyed them. They did. You understand? So it's been left up to word of mouth. And yeah, I kind of was looking at grandma and she had blue eyes. And so that means she was from Atlantis, but she's all by way of Israel, but she's never left here because this is her native land. This is the kind of stories and stuff that's floating out here. And so let me show you an example here. I'm going to pop this video up real quick. These are the kind of stories where it's, and I'm getting to, and trust me, this is all it's all layered on top of this whole narcissism thing here. But all you got to do is spend a little bit of time on social media, and you're going to see videos like this popping around, and you're looking at them thinking, oh, they're just, they're just being creative. No, there are people that actually believe this stuff. Here you go.
Lies beneath the ocean, and they prayed we'd never remember.
This was our empire, our power, before the waters rose and they rewrote history.
We didn't fall. We were hidden. Atlantis is rising.
And you got people out here that are actually saying that the city of Atlanta is Atlantis. Black folks are saying this. Okay. Here's another video of the stuff that's being put out. And yes, they are taking this stuff very seriously.
The ancient world of America, before the history books were changed in lies, there stood families of giants, black giants, tall as the trees, strong as the rivers, rooted in the power of kinship. The Washita giants, the Choctaw and Chickasaw giants, the Sioux and Iroquois giants. Every tribe lived by one law, family first. Fathers taught sons to guard the sacred earth. Mothers passed down the secrets of the stars. Children were raised to honor balance with creation. Their homes were not of bricks but of love, their bloodline not of weakness but of power. Natural law was their household code. To protect, to nurture, to build. Universal law was their eternal bond. As above, so below. As within, so without. Though their bones still sweep in the mounds beneath our feet, their families live on in every black man, woman, and child across this land. They are the children of giants, the living families of a forgotten empire. And now the family of giants rises again.
Oh, you gotta understand in your mind.
Every family faces a trial, and the giants of America faced theirs. When invaders came, armed not with honor but with greed, the giants were hunted. Fathers cut down, mothers chained, children scattered. The family of giants, once sovereign across this land, was pushed into hiding. Some fell, their bones buried in the sacred mounds that still rise from the soil. Others escaped, retreating into the caverns, deep into the inner earth, carrying their children where no hand of the enemy could reach. For they knew the frequency of this world was shifting. The heavens had changed, and the earth itself was entering a darker age. So they preserved what mattered most, family. They taught their children in silence, waiting for the day when the vibration of truth would rise again. For every black soul walking America carries the blood of those families, the hunted, the hidden, the eternal. The story of the giants is not a tale of extinction, but a prophecy of return.
I guess I want to know, why are they all at Disney? Why are they all at Disney World? Everything takes place around Disney World anyway. But so this, when we talk about narcissism, one of the characteristics is that you have this overinflated view of yourself. I really wish I can get on here and tell you that, well, hey, these people are just kidding. It ain't no, I just showed you a video, and it's been going around. Stone Mountain was covered with black folks that were chanting, Atlanta is Atlantis. Atlanta is Atlantis. And then you notice how they were slipping in there. These are the children of Zion. And he said that these are giants. And, then they had the spaceships going on and all this other stuff. You want to talk about overinflated view of yourself? What AI is doing right now, it is giving people who already have a level of narcissism, it is giving them the ability to inflate themselves even more in this area. Because you got people now that are putting out all this stuff and they're listening to it like, yeah, that is right. That is right. And that audio, and then they'll say, well, okay, well, maybe the video's AI, but the audio, you heard how the audio was like, it was like from an old radio broadcast. See, they keep this stuff hidden from us. They're hiding this stuff from us. See, this is who we really are. This is who we really are. And so let me see. So that okay. And then you had this story here. Right here. And I am going to actually do because this deserves its own video. This story deserves its own video. You guys heard of this family of missing Texas woman found living. Now, this is a Black American woman who ran away from America. She ran away from America to join an ancient lost tribe in Scotland. And now she's saying that she is the wife of this guy here. Oh, when I tell you they are putting up so much content on TikTok, and I'm saving as much as I can on it because I said this cannot be forgotten. So I'm listening to the people who live in Scotland. These are people who live in Scotland. These Negroes, because he is supposedly the king of the kingdom of Kubala. He is the king of the kingdom of Kubala, and his kingdom is in the Highlands of Scotland. Now, I've never set foot in Scotland. The only thing I know about Scotland is the movie Braveheart. Just kidding. But, what I've read about it and what I've seen on YouTube and stuff like that, it seems like it's a beautiful country, and it's got its own little unique vibe and all of that. But these Negroes picked the part of Scotland. They said, these are people that live there. They said they're not going to last long up there because if you know anything about the Highlands area, they said, once rainy season hit, you ain't going to make it. But these people, when you listen to them, they're actually talking about how they are the original of Scotland. And when I've been following, I know some of you guys maybe have been following on like TikTok, where these FBA people are saying, we're reaching out to the Scottish people because we've never seen Black Scottish people before. What? And so they're acting like they discovered like Columbus, like they're acting like they discovered the Scottish. And so I'm seeing how they're trying to blend in. They're telling them, listen, whatever you do, make sure you don't listen to the Africans. They said, whatever you do, these are FBA people telling them this. They're telling them, again, I'll get this question. What is FBA? Be fortunate you don't know. But FBA, to be clear again, it is an online clown cult. That's what it is. Of individuals that are made up mostly of Black Americans, or pretty much Black Americans, but they do not represent all Black Americans. And if you believe that, then you need to keep scrolling, because this group does not represent all of Black Americans. And so, but they believe themselves to be the representative of every Black American, but they're not. And so they believe that their roots are here in America, that we have our unique culture, which we can agree on that. I agree on that. I shake hands with people who believe that. Here in America, Black Americans who came over here in slavery, yes, over time, we developed our unique culture, right? But that culture, someone said, I'm out. Good. Bye. Don't come back. And so anyway, we developed our unique culture. But that culture is rooted in Africa. And this is the problem that they have. They don't like anything to do with Africa. They say we ain't got nothing to do with Africa at all. These Africans, and they call them all kinds of derogatory names. And it comes vice versa too. You got people from Africa that will unfortunately go there as well. And so we call both of that out. But whoever it is, be it here in America or on the continent or in the Caribbean, the people that engage in that are individuals. They represent a tiny minority of these groups. They do not represent the whole. There are many Africans that don't even play in that space. There are a lot of Caribbeans that don't play in that space. And just like that, there's a lot of Black Americans that don't play in that space either. But with FBA, what they're doing in this whole Scottish discovery is that they're slowly trying to tell them, hey, listen, you guys are the original. Did you know that? You're the original Scottish. In fact, you guys ruled Scotland. Did you know that? And I'm listening to these Black Scottish, and most of them are laughing. They're like, you're telling me to avoid Africans, but my family is from Africa. This is something we're very proud of. My family's from the Caribbean. This is something we celebrate and we're very proud of. What are you talking about? So they're going over there. I mean, they're spreading this stuff to these people and telling them about their culture. Now, is that arrogant or what? That's arrogance. That is arrogance. You're going to warn people in Scotland, in another country. You're going to warn them, hey, don't, whatever you do, stay away from them dirty, stinking Africans. You're going to tell them that. And they're sitting up there like, we're actually African, but yes, we were born here and we're Scottish. So this is what they're putting out, right? So this is so they're pushing this exceptionalism. And that's what I was talking about. It's with this Black narcissism is the new American exceptionalism, which let's talk about that. What is American exceptionalism? Let me pull that up real quick. I thought I had it up for you because I want to read that definition for you. Make sure you understand that. American exceptionalism is the idea that the United States is unique and qualitatively different from other nations, often with the implication that it is destined to play a special role on the world stage. This belief is rooted in the nation's history, political system, and founding principles, and is often associated with concepts like democracy, personal freedom, and a sense of unique destiny. Now, when you listen to either the FBA crowd or I would say even in our chosen belief systems, one of the chosen belief systems that we got going on right now is the Hebrew stuff. Hebrew Israelites. The Hebrew Israelites have found a way, and I knew this was going to happen. They found a way to link up and say, well, we're Hebrews, but we're also native to this land, but we're also from Israel by way of the Sephardic Jews and spaceship. And so this is what they put out. So here's an example of really what they're about here. Now, I found this on TikTok. Someone posted this. Now, you see something. What do you notice in this picture here? I didn't put this together. I wouldn't post something like as ridiculous as this. But this is what they post here. And I challenge anybody, and I would be more than happy to open this phone line up right this second. If anything that I'm saying is false or inaccurate, I am more than happy to do that. But every time I do that, nobody calls. Literally nobody calls. And I give you, and I've had plenty of examples where I listen to you, but you're not going to use this as a platform to just be spouting stuff and then hang up. No, we're going to discuss like adults. So I'm always willing to have open dialogue and discussion in real time with folks, but they never show up. They never show up. So I want you to really take a look at this image here. Take a look at this image here. This is what they're putting out. So Africans, they're saying, look like this, which is a pretty good rendition of AI. I mean, I think it looks nice. Then they say, but look at the Black American. Notice something different about the Black American. Well, it makes sense that he's not wearing African clothes. That kind of makes sense. But notice his skin color. Isn't that interesting? They made him look nice and light. This, my friend, is the root of this exceptionalism that I've been talking about. Some of these people, when you listen to them, they have a colorism issue. They do. They have a colorism issue. And they believe that somehow their admixture, their genetic admixture, somehow makes them better than anybody else. So this is why they go around and say, I'm not that. I'm not this or that or whatever. Because, when you compare our genetic admixture and compare it to someone in Africa that's born and raised and always been there, they're going to mostly be African. I mean, you look through their genetics tree, it's all African. For us, we're going to have some European, we're going to have, some other things in there. And, that's just on average. That's what you're going to see. You know what I mean? But there are numbers of people that believe that somehow that mixture makes them better than Caribbeans. It makes them better than people on the continent of Africa. And this is what they believe gives them license to do so. And you even brought it over to this belief system in your religion. I'm talking about that was Hebrew Israelites. They teach this stuff. Oh, you're lying about Hebrew Israelites. Well, look at their chart. Look at their 12 tribe chart. They got to include the Puerto Ricans. They got to include all this other, they do that. And we know why. But they believe this. This is the foundational belief system of Hebrew Israelites. And again, I challenge anyone to say I'm lying. Your foundational belief, I say this because I was once one. I was in it. I was in it for a while. Hebrew Israelites, one of the foundational beliefs that they have is that they are the select, the elect, and the chosen and the set apart. That's what they believe from anybody else. And it's not just Hebrew Israelites. I'm not talking any Hebrews or whatever that's in other countries. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the Hebrew Israelite movement. We have studied it. We have given you tons of notes. I've given PDFs. I've shown you studies. I pointed to peer-reviewed stuff, the whole nine. This ain't coming from some drunk uncle. This ain't coming from a grandma. This is first tier stuff, going to their paperwork, going all the way back into the early 1900s. These people believe that they are, in fact, the chosen. They believe that they are the set apart. But it boggles my mind when I'm listening to some of these Hebrew Israelites who are now trying to adapt some of the terminology that these FBA people are using, that, they're calling, these, Caribbeans and Africans tethers and all this other stuff. But dummy, do you not realize that the founders of the Hebrew Israelite movement, they came out of the Caribbean. They got their their influence out of the Caribbean. When you follow their line, they started that. I'm not talking just necessarily about Cherry. There's a guy named Cherry, and there was another guy, Wentworth. But when you go back further into their history, before them, there were other individuals. They took from the practices that they were seeing in the Caribbean, and they brought it over here in the Harlem area, in Harlem, New York. In Harlem, New York, you had Black Americans, you had Caribbeans and all of that, and everybody was flowing fine. So you had these belief systems that were pulling from stuff that they learned in the Caribbean, stuff that we learned here, and it was just a hodgepodge of different things. When you look at the earliest history of Hebrew Israelite belief system, that's where it comes from. And in that time, they actually believed that they were directly related to the Jews, the Ashkenazi. So much so that the temples that they had in that time, the churches / temples or whatever, I'm talking about Black Hebrew Israelites, I showed you where they actually appealed to Ashkenazis and said, we need money so that we can buy a building. We can get buildings. And they actually did this. I am not making any of this up. They won't tell you this stuff. So the very people that you say you hate are the very ones that y'all were asking money for. When you look at the, it's not the Promise Keepers, it's the something keepers. It's not coming to mind right now. They're still in existence to today. And they will tell you this. They will tell you this. You have synagogues, Black synagogues in the New York area today, New York City area today. They still work hand in hand. I'm talking about Black Hebrew Israelites. They still work hand in hand with Jews. They still work hand in hand with them. And they see them as, hey, we're all one. You are Jews, you guys are the originals or whatever. We're also joint with you guys and all of that. They've been saying this stuff. But they've adopted this belief system that where they are telling themselves that we are above and we are better than anybody else. That's what they put out there. They put this out here. I could spend a whole lot of time just talking about that. So you got a belief system. You've made a religion out of it. Your exceptionalism, you have made a religion out of this. People, I ain't talking about all of y'all, but there are people out here who have literally made this into a religion where your religion tells you that you are exceptional, you are better, you are higher than other people. It's the commandment keepers. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Yeah, it's the commandment keepers. Look them up. It's all online. You can look them up. The commandment keepers, they're not trying to separate themselves from these Ashkenazis at all. They see themselves as connected with them. And for some of you who will say, well, what about the Igbo and the Limba? Well, we've talked about that as well. Have you ever listened to the Igbo and the Limba? They will tell you too that we are genetically connected to the Ashkenazis. But what are the Ashkenazis saying? The Ashkenazis saying, hell no, you're not. I'm just trying to tell you, but it's this exceptionalism that we are seeing within what we call the black community. Why is that? As I bring it back down here, and I'm just trying to get through this. Why is this? We understand, again, when you're dealing with a population that historically we have had to deal with the stuff that we had to deal with. We had to deal with a society that used media, used any and all means to tell us that we were ugly, we were dumb, we were stupid, we were this, we were that, and all this other stuff. There was a fight or flight thing that was inside of us. And that is the part that reminds us that we are human, right? We're human. And that, and by being human, that means we all have the ability inside of us to be great or to be a good person. You know what I mean? Good, great, whatever. You should be a good person. You're going to be great. You understand what I'm saying? But we have choices. But to sit up here and to lie and to put this stuff out here, and you got people walking down, they like 15 feet and all this stuff, and they Choctaw, we're the Choctaw giants of the land and all, and people are buying into this stuff. Well, bro, didn't you know that, telling stories like, there's a pathway in the Grand Canyon that all you got to do is just walk. If you find the right cave, it will take you to Africa. Bro, if that was true, then why go through the whole effort of building planes and boats and stuff to go over there in the first place? Couldn't they just walk the slaves over here if that was the case? I'm just saying, so I'm sitting back and I'm listening to these people push these alternative histories. Let me give you this last thing. There is a thing going on right now. It's a rumor that's been going, and I know many of you have heard it, because I'm seeing people jump all on this stuff. Then they're not checking. There's a rumor that's been going around where it's some guy supposedly from NASA who has said that I got a secret to tell you. Oh, I got a secret to tell y'all. And oh my God, I'm going to tell you. It's a history. It's something that I found out. Well, the rumor is that there's a NASA scientist that's out here, and he was on this base. And I'm trying, y'all help me to keep it together. But this is what's out here now. Again, this all falls under this exceptionalism stuff. And this is a sign that shows you that you are being played. You are being played. There is this rumor that's going around that's saying that black people, that this scientist from NASA, a former scientist. He said he was on the base and one day a spaceship landed. And when the spaceship landed, it basically, the doors opened up and guess what he saw? These giant aliens that looked like African Americans. Let me ask you something. I mean, just let's walk through sanity for a second, just for a little bit. Just for a little bit. First of all, they're coming from space. How are they African American? But anyway, they're how? But anyway, he said they look like African American. Now, this is interesting. When I heard this, he said they look like, he didn't say they were black. He didn't say they look African. He said they looked African American. I'm trying to get you to get into critical thinking here. Now, I find this very strange that he's saying that they looked African American. Now, there are physiology, there are some differences that you will find between an African versus an African or a Black American, right? There are going to be some physiological differences, right? Generally speaking, but it depends on what group you're talking about, because Africa is a continent, is not a country. I get it. But when you're looking at people, for example, from Ghana, when you're looking at people from Congo, even, to a certain extent, some of the other countries as well, to a certain extent, Nigeria can be 50-50 because Nigeria is just got full of different cultures. I mean, it's a whole bunch of cultures in there. So it really depends if you're talking Nigeria, but all along that west coast of Africa, there are many, Ivory Coast, there are many, many African groups that if you look at them, they look just like black folks, Black Americans. Let me stop here because I love stopping, but I'm not losing my focus here. Let me get to Kelly real quick. She said, FBA isn't a clown cult. I understand the concept. There are different experiences for those whose ancestors were enslaved in the United States. Some use ADOS. I understand it completely. Well, let me help you with that and help you to understand, clearly what FBA is. Okay, so it is. I still stand by what I said. It is a clown cult, no doubt. Okay, so let me put this up on the screen to help you out here. Let's see. Is this it here? Is this here? Let's see. Let me put this up here for you. Is it on my desktop? It might be on my desktop. Let's see here. And if not, it's on my phone. But basically, I'll show you this. All right, make sure you hang on there. Don't go anywhere. I have one image, but I think I'm going to use this one instead. Okay, here we go. Because the other one I have is labeled. Okay, so this is FBA Inc. right here, what you're looking at right now. Okay, Kelly, this is what you're looking at. Because all of these different individuals claim that they are original to this land. So what do you see here? You got the Native American. What do you see here? You got the Moors. What do you see? You got the Hebrew Israelite. Now you got the Atlanteans. Or now you got people saying that, no, we came from outer space, but we're originally from this land. And I showed a video where someone is actually pushing that. Black folks are actually space aliens, but we are original to this land. Now make that make sense, Kelly, to me. Make that make sense. And then now you got the Atlanteans. All of these groups that I just mentioned to you, Kelly, all of them claim to be original to this land. That is the core principle of FBA. Okay? So when you got all of these people, when you look at their belief systems in detail, they all conflict with one another. All of them conflict with one another. So how in the world, Kelly, can you say this is some kind of movement or organization? It's not an organization. This is something that is online, internet-based, that does not exist in the real world. I have yet to find anybody walking on the streets claiming to be an FBA. They won't say it. But I have met many individuals, like I just outlined for you right here, Kelly, that claim to be original to this land, but they have different origin stories. How the hell can you even, how is that even possible? How is that even humanly possible? Yes, so it is a clown coat, 100%. It is a clown coat. So pick a ring. There's 3 rings typically in the circus, so pick one. Okay? I'm going to be real with you. You may not like that, and I know that may be a bit uncomfortable to you, and you probably not you ain't going to find too many people saying that, but that is true. Once you step back and you listen like I do to what's being said here, everybody's got their own message. Everybody got their own message. But yet they are unified on 2 things. 1, they're original to this land, and 2, they have nothing to do with Africa. Right now, what they're doing right now is this. Lately, this latest thing they did, they said, well, we're going to do a boycott. We're going to boycott all African-owned businesses. You remember that? Remember that? We're going to boycott all Black-owned businesses, all African businesses, all African businesses, because, we're tired of them and we're tired of the disrespect and all this other stuff, right? Remember that? Remember that, Kelly? Remember that? You want to know how that went? See, what we do here is we actually go back and we check up and we verify. We go back and do that. That's what we help try to encourage people who view this channel to do. Go back after you done said what you're going to say. Go back and see if it is really true. Well, we did that. And I didn't, unfortunately, for the sake of time, I'm not going to go through this because, like I said, this video here is going to be short, but you can look this up. Nadine's in the Maryland area. Remember that? The 24/7 hair braiding African. You had FBA that was all in there saying we're gonna boycott. Well, guess what? They've been doing lives and showing a full house at 2 a.m. You got Black Americans and Africans and Caribbeans all going in there getting their hair done, and people saying this is the best time. I'm so glad I will be back. So much for that one. Then it was another African shop, same thing. They're doing very well. So now that didn't work. So now you're moving into this other thing where they're saying, oh, y'all, we're going to get together. And what we're going to do now is we're going to boycott all beauty supply shops that sell products. We're going to boycott beauty supply shops or beauty suppliers, hair suppliers that do not, in which the manufacturers are not Black. So if you are a manufacturer that's not Black, like in other words, if you're Asian, we're not going to buy your stuff. And they said, we're going to boycott that. So everything's boycott. Show me the FBA businesses. Show me the FBA banks. In fact, here's my challenge to you. When you say that you are the center of the universe, because that's what they've been saying. We are the blueprint. We are the blueprint. The world looks at us. This is what's put out constantly. Well, let me ask you something. The world looks at you? Yes, I'm talking to FBA people because real Black Americans don't think this foolish. We don't. So I'm putting a fine line a big line between the clown cult and real Black Americans. Because real Black Americans don't believe that at all. When you listen to FBA people, they say, yeah, we are the blueprint. Everyone, okay. And then you ask them, okay, what when you say blueprint, what are you talking about? Well, we came out with hip hop. Okay, so do you really think the banks of the world, before they sit down and say, okay, we're going to take that country, we're going to take this country, we're going to take that gold mine, but first, let's look at what the Black Americans, what they're saying. Let's look at the FBA people. What are the FBA people saying? Oh, they're getting on code now. I don't know if we're going to take these countries or not. I don't know if we're going to build. You really think that? You really think that these banks are actually looking at that? Do you really believe this? They don't. Well, it's our style. They look at our style and our fashion. Okay, so you really think style and fashion actually is a linchpin for economies around the world? You actually believe that? See, you think I'm talking down on you. I'm trying to talk some sense into you. You understand what I'm saying? And unfortunately, we got a lot of folks who do not have somebody in their life that will do that. But I'm going to tell you the truth. Look at your history. And what it's really doing is exposing the weakness that is existing in what we call Black American culture. I know this is hard things to hear, but it's true. It's exposing the dysfunction that's there. It's exposing a lot. And the world is laughing, not at all Black Americans, but people who fall in line with this American exceptionalism, this narcissism ideology that has been adopted, that you are somehow by default better than everybody else. Yeah, someone said this. I've heard of this, Chief. Hold on, let me see. I've heard of this. I haven't really looked into this yet, but I did hear hear about this. They said what they're doing now is channeling their aggression towards a colored South African artist called Tyler, all because she refused to identify as Black. I heard of that. I can't really comment on it, but I know exactly what you're talking about. It's like they will find so anyway, getting back to the space alien thing, and then I'm pretty much done here. So do you think that the United States, someone who used to work for the government, you know, they always say this, someone who used to work for the government, he's given some secrets. I saw space aliens and they came out. They didn't look like Africans, but they looked like Black Americans. Why do you think he was very specific with that? That's a very curious specificity, or whatever you want to call it, for someone to say that. I wouldn't say, that's like me saying I saw space aliens and they look Japanese. No, you would say I saw space aliens and they look Asian. That's most people would say that. You wouldn't be that specific. I saw space aliens and they look like Eskimos. I saw space aliens and they looked like they were Ukrainian. You wouldn't say that. What I'm trying to tell you is that this system knows exactly what it's doing. And it's feeding Negroes that are out here who have low self-esteem, who ultimately have hatred towards themselves. And they're feeding you this stuff using AI technology to give you this overblown view of yourself so that you can become weaponized against other people out there who don't agree with you. Therefore, you got a bomb, you got a weapon that's, they don't have to build a weapon and put it in a plane and spray a crowd. All they got to do is feed lies to a few Negroes and say, just keep repeating this over and over again. Just keep repeating it. Just keep repeating it. And then the bomb is internal. You see the cleverness of how these people operate? It's really fascinating when you think about it. But this is what they do. My encouragement to you, I'm wrapping this up, is this. This America, none of us are exceptional in that regards, where you are instinctively better than somebody else. That doesn't, you don't have any right to do that. You don't. And what we're seeing today is an extension of it. It is a Black version of this whole American exceptionalism stuff that we're seeing. And it's downright narcissism. And narcissism, you cannot build a steady and stable and a nation of good character with that. You can't. Narcissism is automatically a one trip away. It's a trip down. It's a going down trip where if you start seeing overblown narcissism, but yet is overblown poverty and people losing jobs and people fighting each other every 5 minutes over every little thing, you are hearing the death calls of a group of people that's basically going down. Because all of this confusion that we're seeing right now, somebody's going to have to stand up and start addressing this stuff as is and not being scared to say it. Because this cannot be passed down to our next generation. I was telling my wife the other day, I said, it literally seems like someone hit that crazy button recently, because what I've been saying for months now, I said, we're going to see this mental health of many folks is going to start getting worse. And I'm seeing it happen literally right before me. And I'm sure many of you as well. But we're going to have to start taking this stuff serious, but also start drawing a line in the sand and say enough is enough. You do not speak for me. Your clown cult, you can do whatever you want, but you dare mess with my history. Don't you dare mess with my culture. Don't you dare mess with my lineage. You keep that over there. You keep that BS over there. My lineage, my culture, it stands. And that's it. I'm not doing this whole space alien, mess that's out here. It's crazy. And we need to start calling it out for what it is. Listen, I hope you got something out of this broadcast. And put it in the chat, but be respectful. As I was respectful here, be respectful. I am more than willing to dialogue with folks. But don't just say something and dart out. No, let's talk this thing all the way out. Okay? But I'm more than welcome to do that. I'll be going live again pretty soon. But again, thank you so much for tuning in. You guys take care, and I'll see you again soon. Take care.